12th, 2002. It's a date that I'll never forget. I was 14 years old, just started sophomore year in high school, and that Thursday afternoon was like any other as I arrived home from school. When I walked in, both my parents were there, and their expression on their face was one that I can't explain, but I knew it was bad. They sat me down, and my stomach dropped, and I didn't have any idea what was going on, but I knew that this wasn't normal, and my mom's eyes filled with tears as she grabbed my hand and said a sentence I thought I'd never hear her say, and she said, "Honey, I have cancer." My mom was a really strong woman, and she was relatively healthy except for this cough that just wouldn't go away, and I was completely floored by this diagnosis. My 15th birthday was 9 days after her announcement. She let me have a party to distract me from everything that was going on, and I just remember her being so tired at the party with the weight of her diagnosis and the decisions that she had to make heavy on her shoulders. She didn't leave the couch really at all during the whole party, and it was like the shadow of cancer just covered my house and it covered my family. And we went through the motions, and to act like everything was normal was hard, and the fear of the unknown was there, and it was just overshadowing everything. The next couple weeks were a big whirlwind with chemo and radiation and endless hours of just sitting in a waiting room and waiting for my mom's treatments to be done. Her cancer was way more advanced than we thought, and we knew it was in her esophagus and in her lungs, and they were testing, so they were pretty sure it was other places too. She had a really positive outlook and a fighter's heart, and she was determined she was going to beat this. We had a lot of fun times in those weeks too, though, because we would go out shopping and we go out to eat, and she'd talk about her new lease on life and how she was going to go out and enjoy it to the fullest once all these treatments were done. And we'd go to the salon and get our hair done together and have mother-daughter dates, and we actually went that month and got mother-daughter pictures taken. And we just really became best friends in those weeks, like a way I had never had that relationship with her before. And I also had a lot of selfish thoughts during that time. I thought about how hard life was for me, how on top of high school and boyfriends and drama with my friends and the homecoming dance and the Power Cup game, and I had all this cancer stuff on my shoulders too. And I was so mad. I was mad that I had to deal with this, and I couldn't enjoy high school, and I just had to deal with this on top of all these other things. And I wanted chemo and radiation to hurry up and work so my life could be normal, and I just wanted my mom back. When the results came back that her bones were riddled with cancer, my mom's spirit died a little. And when her oncologist called and said she had 6 tumors in her brain, the sparkle was gone from her eye, and it was like I could see the fight leave her body. She didn't want to fight anymore. And she went downhill really quickly after that. I could see her face puff up with all these chemicals that were meant to kill the cancer. Her hair fell out. Her voice was gone. It disappeared. She would knock on the wall to get our attention so she could tell us what she needed. I remember the day after this sobering thought, I might never hear my mom's voice again. We continued going through the motions, trying to make the best out of life and make it as normal as possible. And my parents bought my older brother tickets to see a live taping of WWE Monday Night Raw. And I was like, please take me with you. And he was like, okay. And so we went and had a great time, just forgot about it. And we got home super late, and I asked my mom to record it because we made these big signs, and we were hoping that we could see ourselves on there. And this is pre-DVR, so you actually had to take a tape and put it in a VCR and hit record and let it record. So I was like, yeah, we'll go home and watch it. And my mom started recording, but she fell asleep, and my dad didn't know it was recording, and he changed the channel. So when I got home and found out it wasn't recorded, I was like, what? And just being a selfish teenager, I threw a fit, and I stomped my feet, and I slammed the door, and I went to bed. And the next morning, I grabbed some breakfast, I opened my mom's door and said, love you, and ran out to the bus. and didn't give her a kiss like I usually do. I was still so angry that we didn't have a recording. She was asleep, so I'm not even sure that she heard me say goodbye, and I went to school thinking I'd probably get in trouble and probably grounded for not saying goodbye when I got home. The date was October 29th, 2002. It was 1 month, 2 weeks, and 3 days after her diagnosis. The bus pulled up to my house after school, and I saw my Aunt Michelle's SUV pulled kind of haphazardly in my driveway. It was half in the driveway and half in the yard. And my Aunt Michelle, she doesn't visit very often because she's a surgeon. She is very busy, and she has a lot of money, so the fact that this car was just pulled into the driveway so oddly was really weird, and it raised my suspicions. So I walk up, and I'm like, why is Aunt Michelle here on a Tuesday? And I see my dad leaning against the counter. My aunt is fluttering around the kitchen putting dishes away, and I'm like, why is my dad just standing there letting my aunt put dishes away? Like, she's a surgeon, she doesn't do dishes. And I glanced toward the living room, I'm like, where's my mom? And I'm like, hey Dad, and it's then that I notice his disposition. His arms are across his chest, his eyes are red, his face is solemn. And with all my books and my bag in my hand, he pulls me to his chest and he just starts crying and sobbing into my hair. And in all those 15 years that I'd been alive, I'd never seen my dad sob. He cried a little bit, but not sobbed. And I dropped everything from my hands and hugged him. My eyes were wide and my heart was beating 1,000,000 miles a minute. And I was just like, what's going on? Where are my mom, my brothers? Why is my aunt doing dishes? And he pulled me away and he looked into my eyes with tears streaming down his. And he said, do I have to say it? And I just heard silence. And everything was gone. It was like nothing was real. And I just sat there in silence with everything I knew suspended in air. In reality, it was seconds before everything around me came crashing down like a car crash. My world shattered. And I fell at my dad's feet, and my school books were around me, and the contents of my gym bag was spewed across the floor, and all of these normal, everyday things were wrong. Why were they there expecting me to take care of them when my life as I knew it was gone, and my mom was dead, and my sweet, beautiful mom was gone forever? Now, I don't know your relationship with your parents. I don't know if you all have a mom present in your home, but all of you have some kind of caregiver in your life, and I want you to imagine. I was not far from your guys' age when this happened. My sophomore year of high school started like any other year, and how was I going to know that in 2 months that my mom would be dead? If you would have told me that summer before school that by October my mom would be diagnosed with and die from cancer, I would have laughed in your face, because that doesn't happen to me. That happens in books or movies I watch. It doesn't happen in my hometown, and it definitely doesn't happen to my family. And I thought we were invincible, and obviously that's silly because I know we aren't. I know my parents would die at some point, but not for a long time when they're 90 and they have great grandkids and it's from natural causes. I spent the rest of that day just staring at my ceiling. I was numb. I vaguely remember my best friend sneaking in and just laying next to me and holding my hand. I don't know how she got there, who called her, but I had quite a few amazing friends back in that time who stuck with me while I coped. They made me cards and brought me flowers, and they came to the wake and the funeral, and they held my hand as I stumbled numbly through life. I returned to school a week or so later. I don't remember much in those first weeks as I tried to get back on my feet, but I do know that I spent a lot of time thinking and trying to figure out why this happened, and that was the question that I was left with. Why? Who knows? I asked myself why a lot, and I asked God, and I never got a response. I had no relationship with God. I barely ever even had talked to him. I'd gone to church with my grandma before, but the intimidating weirdness of communion and peace be with you and all this stuff, it was just boring, and I didn't get it, so I didn't want to do church. My friends tried to fill my time so that I could move on, but it felt really empty, and my family crumbled around me as we learned how to walk again without the support of my mom. I didn't know where to turn for the comfort that I was desperately seeking. I just wanted my mom. I tried everything I could to feel whole again. I jumped into a serious relationship with a guy that I let talk me into sex well before I was ready, searching for a peace to make me whole again. When the relationship disintegrated after a few months, I jumped into the next one, and well before I ever had my license, I'd steal my brother's car and go with my friends wherever we wanted, thinking freedom would make me feel good. I drank alcohol. I started smoking 6 days after my 16th birthday. I dabbled in drugs. I sliced my arms with razor blades. I was on the lookout for anything that would make my heart race, that would make me feel alive, and all of it worked for a minute. Then it would fade, and I would be left feeling empty with a hollow shell of who I would used to be, and I would still be sitting there with the question, why? My friend Erica saw me. She saw me searching. She saw me make bad decision after bad decision, and she stood by me even when I called her goody two-shoes and I made fun of her in public for never cursing. I just was horrible to her, and she held my hand as I cried when I get my heart broken by another guy. She physically wrestled cigarettes out of my hand, begging me not to ruin my body with it. She invited me to church over and over again, and I said no, because I've got these things, and these things make my heart beat and they make me happy. Plus, how do you go to church when you smell like an ashtray? Once she told me about a cute guy that she knew at church, and I was like, oh, cute guys? I'll go. Thought, maybe if I date a church guy, I'll find what I'm looking for, my heart won't get broken. So I went, and I was utterly disappointed by the choice of cute guys at this church. But I was already there, so I was like, whatever, I'll go. And I felt awkward and uncomfortable, and I was trying to make small talk with these people I didn't know, and I was just sitting there thinking, you would shun me if you knew the things I did yesterday. But they were all welcoming, and they all had it together, and I said, I want that. Like, how do you have it together? I tried to keep to myself and just not get involved, but they just started playing this music, and it wasn't any music. They were singing about a Savior, this Jesus who takes your burdens, and this loving, forgiving God who sent his son to die for me. And I just sat there thinking, I don't know why, God, you chose to take my mom, but I know that you know the heartache of losing someone. You know the pain of death. You lost your son in the most brutal way, God. And I felt a pull to know more about him. I responded to an altar call where I accepted Christ. And since then, my relationship with God isn't always sunshine and rainbows because I don't understand his plan, but I know it's greater than mine. A relationship with God didn't make my life easy. It made my life have purpose. And losing my mom made me really mature a lot faster than most teenagers. Aside from bad decisions, it forced me to be responsible. My dad worked day and night, and I had to hold myself accountable to keep my grades up and graduate high school. I married Travis at 18 years old, and by that point, my mom had been dead for 4 years already. Without her passing, I'd never have been mature enough for marriage. And a year after we were married, I was 19 and we moved to North Carolina, away from everything I've ever known. We grew closer in our marriage, and I was able to step out on faith and grow my relationship with God. And because of that move, Travis's relationship with his dad was restored. He grew closer to his older sister, whom he'd never had a relationship with. He even officiated her wedding while we lived there. In North Carolina, we started a youth group from the ground up. We were able to teach these kids about Jesus and build lasting relationships with some of them and help them pursue their relationship with Christ. We met our very best friends in North Carolina. We let God use our house and our physical bodies to bless friends in times of need. I would have never, ever, ever moved to North Carolina and away from my mom if she were alive. Because we moved to North Carolina, Travis was able to finish his education and get his master's degree, and we were able to pursue a full-time in youth ministry, and that's why we're here in Yakima. We are here in this room, you're here in this room because of God's perfect plan. I would give anything in the world to have my mom back. But I've seen God's glory in my life over and over and over in ways that would have never, ever been possible without the trials that I went through. I was just telling Travis yesterday that even though it would still be hard for his parents to die, he can rest assured that he'll see them again in heaven. I don't know if I'll see my mom again. We weren't a family of believers. In fact, I'm still the only believer in my family, and my heart aches for them. It's been 12 years since my mom died, and my family is still struggling without her support. My prayer is that my family will see their need for God, and all of our relationships will be restored through that. I want to know that I'll see the rest of my family in heaven again. Jeremiah 29:11 says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future." This has been my life verse. God has plans for me. Nothing is a surprise to God. He knew through my trials that his plan was to prosper me. He didn't take my mom to harm me. His plan was greater than that. He gave me hope and a future as a wife to an amazing man, a future in Raleigh, North Carolina, a future here in Yakima, a future as a mom to a perfect, beautiful little girl. And I don't know what else he has planned, but I know that right now it's greater than my plan. I don't know what you all are going through right now in your lives, whether it's big or small, but I know some of you are hurting. And I can tell you I've been there. And you can come to me, and I'm here for you, and Robin's here for you, and Travis is here for you, and these people can listen to you, whether it's about death or any of the other things that you're hurting about. We have been there in some way, shape, or form, and we would love to talk to you because we're reaching out to you like my best friend did 12 years ago, and I don't know where I'd be if she hadn't invited me to church, but don't hold it in, embrace God's plan for you.